Hello everyone, and welcome to my first book video that is meant to cover the stories and world that I'm trying to write. Now this video is just intended to give you a quick idea of what type of world this is going to be, so that you can get an idea if this is something you will like. To keep it short, I'm trying to write a dark Victorian steampunk era world that is technologically transitioning into a dieselpunk era. And in this world, it is filled with war, magic, horror, and dystopian societies. I will discuss these topics heavily in the future, but this is meant to be a short intro to the book. I'm also going to discuss the ideas for the channel, with the whole vtuber thing as well, but I will do that closer to the end of the video. Here are the timestamps for each section of the video. I am writing a sandbox type of world that is intended to give other people the foundations to write their stories in. The idea is to make it similar to a fanfiction idea, or something more similar to the SCP Foundations type of thing, where the community is writing a lot of the smaller stories that adds volume and history to this world. A good example would be something like a Warhammer 40k story about someone living in a hive world, where it is not about being the main hero, but rather just another cog in the machine. That is the direction that I'm trying to steer this world towards, by hopefully attracting people that would be interested into writing noir, horror, romance, etc. That is the main idea, but it is not limited to that exclusively. So, this world takes place on a planet about the size of Jupiter, and I chose to make the planet that big since I wanted a lot of unexplored parts of this planet to be available for storytelling purposes. Because the world is mostly steampunk and dieselpunk, the technology makes traversing the planet difficult, and the sheer size makes it difficult to travel quickly from region to region, hence why leaving so much of the planet still undiscovered. This has led me to have a lot of ideas for folklore and village cults and horror in the deep woods type of thing. Right, let's get into the main topics that I need to cover for this video, which is about the main cities at war. There are these cities, and each city is about the size of a continent here on Earth. They also have a particular theme that they are going for, that is meant to display their culture, and for today, it is the Victorian steampunk city and the World War I-ish era dieselpunk city. Now, I have not given these cities names yet, but I will be referring to them as such to make the concept obvious and easy to understand. The steampunk city has a very Victorian, British and nobility type of culture that is heavily ingrained into their steampunk aesthetic. They are the main industrial producers for steampunk-related equipment, such as vehicles, machinery, and most importantly, weaponry. They produce the largest amounts of weapons, and that has given them a bit of a monopoly on the arms trade. They have become incredibly wealthy through this trade, with their incredible manufacturing capabilities and technology, which influenced their culture to have a more nobility type of vibe. They dress well, they speak properly, and this is all in service of selling a superiority public image to the other cities around them. On the other side, we have the dieselpunk city, which has a dirty industrial style and vibe to it. This city is more poverty-stricken than the other cities, and due to that financial struggle, they began pouring a lot of their money and assets into finding a resource that they can sell to the rest of the world. This is when they discover the recipe for diesel, and that has led them to begin producing machinery and vehicles to try and capitalize on the arms trade. This, however, did not go over very well with the steampunk city, who noticed that diesel is actually a better fuel for vehicles than their steam-powered engines, and they began to feel threatened. Eventually, this led to a declaration of war between the two cities, who are stuck in this very World War I type of war, with trenches, mud and disease. Now, the dieselpunk city hasn't really had time to fully build and finance their industry, so they are still struggling financially, and this has led them to a very pragmatic and DIY approach to their situation, by using whatever they can find to make their equipment. People will often use whatever they can find to make their own armor or items, simply because they cannot afford to take away any unnecessary resources from the war effort. Unlike them, their steampunk counterparts are well-financed and have access to greater equipment and the ability to finance their war efforts and industry. Now, there are many reasons why it isn't a completely one-sided stomping ground though, but I will discuss the war at a later time. But overall, this is a very World War I themed war, but a large part of it is also taking place in a city that looks very German Gothic themed. Next up, I quickly want to discuss the basics of the magic system in this world. I heavily base this magic system from diabetes, insulin, sugar and the pancreas, and this has led me to a very interesting idea for magic. So, there is this dark god that blessed certain people with an extra organ that allows them to use his powers, somewhat. When you use magic, your extra organ produces a smutty, greasy type of liquid that begins to flow through your bloodstream. This is known as corruption, which is one of the side effects for using magic, and this happens simply because mortals were not really meant to use godly powers. Over time, it corrupts and infects the mage the more they use it, which has a lot of negative side effects. Now, for a start, your body can work this out of the system naturally, but if you begin to use more magic than you should, it stays longer inside of your bloodstream. This is when you get a little bit more corrupted, since it has a lot of time to dig itself deeper into your body. This corruption doesn't have a drastic effect on the magic user at first, but over time, the more the mage gets corrupted from overusing magic, they become more violent, aggressive, and more willing to use more magic than they intended to. The more corrupted they become, the more changes they experience, and they will begin to physically morph and change into an abomination. At some point, when they have reached too high of a corruption level, they will completely lose their minds and become these dark, corrupted creatures that look and act more monstrous. This corruption makes them incredibly violent, more powerful, bloodthirsty and deranged, which leads them to attack whatever is nearby. To deal with this, many dark creature hunter organizations exist, specifically to kill dark corrupted creatures, wherever they can. See, it is not just mages that can become these corrupted creatures, but animals as well, although there are other stuff to deal with as well that are more unnatural. These organizations go out to eliminate these dark creatures, including these dark mages, which has led to other mages not particularly liking these organizations. Think of it more like an adventurers guild in an anime or something, but instead of it just being people who seek adventure, it is usually more of a profession for those that are desperate for an income. That is because it is very dangerous and very few will actually survive their encounters, so using a lot of the expendable poor has become their business strategy. That being said, many of the poor will often flock to these hunter organizations, since they do pay reasonably well in comparison to the other options the poor may have. However, there are also consequences to killing a mage, especially when you are not a mage yourself. This is because you are killing a blessed one from the dark god, and for that you will be cruelly punished by receiving a curse from this dark god. This can range from body mutations to your generational children suffering for your crimes, of killing this gift that the dark god gave to this world. This has led to a bit of a dystopian hierarchy, where mages are treated as superior and more important. That being said though, this has not stopped some from illegally organ harvesting some of the mages to sell on the black market. Usually criminal overlords will pay a very high price for the organ transplant that will grant them the ability to produce magic, if they survive the surgery, that is. This is usually done through the hunter organizations, since it provides them with added income under the table. Right, I also want to mention that there are various different species that all have a role in the hierarchy of the world, However, I've decided to either rewrite many of the more famous species, since I don't want to rehash the same stereotypes of those species. An example would be the Tolkien elves with pointy ears, or dwarves with big beards and stocky characters. And I've also begun looking at a lot of other mythologies from around the world for fresh inspiration, like the African mythologies that are not as well known as an example. But this is proving to be difficult, since I have to approach each species with their own culture and behavior, which has chewed up a lot of my time. Now, lastly, I want to quickly talk about Baevric and the direction that I want to take the YouTube channel towards. So, Baevric is a character that I'm writing in this Sanbox World, and his story is meant to give me perspective about what I need to flesh out in this world. He is just a small character though, and not like a main character or anything like that. I really want to avoid many main characters of the world stuff, since I want the world to feel big and everyone else to feel small. This is not a world that I want to revolve around a specific character or story, but instead I want to write the world as a world, where no one is the main hero or anything really. Now, regarding the YouTube channel, I got a VTuber model that is Baevric, because I want to have a face attached to the channel. But also, I want to show Baevric's descent into corruption, madness and stagnation as I continue to explore him. I want to show his decline through the model to get more people interested in his story, and I figured a VTuber model would be a cool way to show his downfall. I will go into Baevric's story in later videos, and also the channel is there to help me get better at writing this world and story, which is the overall goal for me. I am planning to do a lot of things to help me get better, like video essays for example, which makes me think more critically and become better at writing down what I'm thinking. But most importantly, I'm hoping to create a community that is just as excited about this world as me, and that they want to help me build it. I don't really want to do this all by myself, and I really want to build something with other people around the world. I think that would be a really cool thing to do, and I don't want it to be just about me. But anyways, that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed at least something here, and if you are interested or not, please let me know why and what you are thinking. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.